I've been known to sit on my porch all day long. Porch honky in my swing, and I ain't worried about a thing. Porch honky, all I need's a big old glass of cold sweet tea. Porch honky, doing fine, living life one day at a time. 1, 2, 3. One day at a time.
Porch honky, sitting on my porch swing, waiting on that sunset to hear the coyotes sing. But in the meantime, it's the same routine. Sweet tea in my beat-up jeans. Charlie Minus on the 6-string, picking a tune. Tracy Stone's doing his thing, skinning a coon. Dogs on the porch laid out by my feet, and everybody's head starts bobbing to the beat. Cars drive by looking at us kind of funny. Just some old porch honkies ain't got no money. Crops in the backyard, chickens in the front, slingshot shooting beer cans off that stump. And the black smoke coming from the smoker, dinner time's close. Yesterday's hide hanging right on the post. Kick back, rocking chair, yeah, we keep it funky. And that's the definition of an old porch honky.
Porch honky, I've been known to sit on my porch all day long. Porch honky in my swing, and I ain't worried about a thing. Porch honky, all I need's a big old glass of cold sweet tea. Porch honky, doing fine, living life one day at a time. 1, 2, 3. One day at a time.
Hanging out, I ain't gotta do a damn thing but sit right here all day on my porch swing. Drink a few, take a chew, kick it with my homies. Might get drunk and start acting like a donkey. Moccasin Creek, feet bare like my pockets. Connor's on the porch and he's shooting bottle rockets. CB3 is humming us a brand new song. He said, yeah, it won't be long until we wake up in the morning and we do it again. Yeah, we're front porch cooking, roof covered in tin. The sun is beating down on my cowboy hat. My voice is getting hoarse, my beer is never flat. I'm looking for my rifle, I found my 45. I raised it in the air, shot it high in the sky. Nobody asked why, they just looked and grinned. Yeah, them old porch honkies, man, they're at it again.
Porch honky, I've been known to sit on my porch all day long. Porch honky in my swing, and I ain't worried about a thing. Porch honky, all I need's a big old glass of cold sweet tea. Porch honky, doing fine, living life one day at a time. One day at a time. Porch honky, doing fine, living life one day at a time. One day at a time.
Hello, everybody. Most of y'all know Hillbilly has some prior engagements that he's currently doing, but he's in the chat. And today we were going to talk about get down those cargo ships that's anchored off of the coast, and we're also going to talk about what's causing those, or what's causing that, and what it can lead to. And we're also going to talk about that 3.5 trillion and some of the stuff that's in it and what could come from that. And then there's just some random filler news that wasn't of high priority, but something to touch on. And I don't see Christina in the chat yet because today's her birthday. And we had decided something earlier where we're actually going to start keeping up with birthdays. And today's Christina and Ryzen's birthday. And Brooke had one. I had one that I can all remember from September. So we're going to start at the end of the month, and we're just going to do birthday shout outs. So I did have this, where was it? I did have a happy birthday song I was going to play to make aware for the September birthdays. And then we'll start doing this for each month. At the last live that we do before the end of the month, we'll do birthday shout outs. And if you had a birthday in September and I wasn't aware of it, just drop it in the chat. Actually, Brooke, if you still have your pen and paper, if you want to be recognized for your birthday, then you can put your birthday in the chat, and Brooke will add it to the list so that we can keep. She's got the list going. So if you haven't submitted your birthday yet, you can go ahead and drop your. All you got to do is month and day. You don't have to do year, because some people don't want their birthday or don't want their age to be known. But you can just drop your month and day down, and Brooke's going to keep up with that so that we can keep the birthdays down and make sure that when your birthday does come, that we recognize you. So here we're going to go with the birthday song. I've never heard this. I hope it's a good one. I just looked it up. Okay, that's enough. Okay, that was for Ryzen and Christina's birthdays today, and me and Brooke had birthdays throughout September. And Christina's missing her birthday shout out. Why are you why are you pissing your pants? Okay, so from there I'm gonna go do the roll call. Just see who's all here. Hillbilly's in the chat, Brooke's in the chat, Mickey's in the chat, Fetty's in the chat. Who else? Joker. That looks like it. And Rocky's in the chat. All right, so that's the shout outs, and we still want to keep a mind in our thoughts and prayers with her medical conditions. Brooke has a situation that has arose where people that she knows that has passed from negligence to COVID, medical negligence, which is a big thing, and I'm not going to touch more on that. But let's keep Brooke and her friends and friends' families in our thoughts and prayers. And from there, I guess we'll start and move on. So the cargo ships, you only hear the news highlighting the cargo ships. It's off of, okay, Warrior Z would like me to add Carmen and her mom, Mama Z, to the prayer list. They've been sicky and icky. So let's keep them in our thoughts as well. So starting out, we're going to start out with the cargo ships off of the coast. And I actually found this guy. A lot of you know Monkey Works that keeps track of the air. Well, there's a guy on YouTube that keeps track of the sea, and he does daily updates with marine trackers. And he gave a very good explanation and used his tracking mechanisms to show what's going on and all of these anchored ships. So I'm going to start out with that, and then we'll talk about it when it's done. What's his channel called? His channel is called What is Going On with Shipping. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with that, because those shipping containers that's anchored can lead to a lot of problems. Basically what they're saying is there's a labor shortage that's causing a food shortage, and they're going hand in hand because you're not having enough workers unloading these containers to import more containers. So all of our imports is just sitting out in the ocean. The title of this is called "The Government Has a Plan to Clear the Ports. We Are Doomed." So I'm going to start out with this.
On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, we have record ships at anchor off U.S. ports, massive backlogs in terminals. But have no worry, the government's here to help. Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano, chair of the Department of History, Criminal Justice, and Political Science at Campbell University, former merchant mariner, and an adjunct instructor of maritime industry policy at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Okay, I didn't think I was going to do a video this week because, not to lie, I've been out there a little bit too much this week. I did an interview yesterday with the guys at Freightwaves TV. It was great to do that. I had not done that before, so that was a real treat to do that. I have just done a video on the NTSB report on the Golden Ray, followed it up with an article on G Captain, and I'm sure that my face is up all over dark boards at the NTSB today. So why not continue that run? Let's talk about the government here and their actions. So a report came out, and I read it on Twitter from a very reputable source, and I've heard of multiple sources, is that the government is preparing to basically intervene into the issue here, particularly the anchorage and the number of ships off the port of LA and Long Beach. Now, as we all know, this has been growing immensely. This is marine traffic showing you that anchorage off the port of LA and Long Beach. And if you zoom out here a little bit more, you'll see ships just milling about here, just sailing around because they don't want to come into the anchorage. And if you go out even further, you just see ships coming in here, one after another, just coming in the long line. And if you go out and look at the long line across the Pacific, you start to see those vessels.
So can we see how many ships are just kind of out there? And it's not just in the LA ports. This is all in the Gulf, around Florida, and up the East Coast, all the way up to Alaska as well. This just is not a LA issue. But as far as reporting is going, they're only saying the LA ports. So I just wanted to make that that point. We'll keep going.
Vessels coming in here. And the rumor that's going around, and again, I take that source as valid, is that the Biden administration wants to come in and do a couple of things. They want to start 24/7 operations at the port of LA Long Beach. They want to eliminate pier pass fees to get more trucks and rail in to the ports. And then they want to fine truckers. Fine truckers. This is, by the way, Truck Appreciation Week. Thank you, truckers. We appreciate everything you do. But the U.S. government now wants to fine you if you miss your gate appointment because you're not there on time. So this has not been confirmed, but we're hearing about it coming in. But I want to touch on this for a couple of reasons. Number one, let's step back here for a minute and look what is going on. So if you do not follow John McCowan on LinkedIn, you should. He does reports all the time. John just came out with a great book on the leading innovators in the maritime industry over history. I'm going to do a review of it for the National Maritime Historical Society Sea History. Can't wait to do it. I'm going to try to get him on my channel here, do a talk with him. I think it'd be a lot of fun to talk with John. But I mean, he's talking about the fact that the breathtaking second quarter 21 as container shipping nets reached 28.6 billion. If you want quantitative data, Judge Man right here. He's talking about that net income. Look at that income coming in. Now, notice how I talked about this yesterday on FreightWaves, how shipping industry is on the cusp of profits all the time. Its margins. The margins are really small. Well, not since second quarter of 20 have we seen this level of margins go in. This is in millions of US dollars. In other words, this 10,000 is not $10,000, it's $10 billion. So you're talking about over $60 billion in this. Go to his other report, which does a monthly look at US ports. And he looks at the number of containers coming in. You can see those dips in there from early 2020, massive spikes since then. And then he breaks down reports here. He's got a chart in here that there it is, that talks about July TEUs in the ports, the July percentage change, the 3-month TEU, the 3-month change, and looking at last time over the previous year, looking at it, and you can just see the growth of this container. I mean, containers are just booming. Add to it this report that came in here. This is the port of this is a Bloomberg report on G-Captain. Talk about the port logjam. The port logjam has enough containers to cross half the United States. Half the United States. We got 65 vessels in port. If you're not following the Marine Exchange on Twitter, about every day they update exactly how many ships are there. You can go to the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach. We're going to put the numbers together. Marine Exchange of Southern California puts it all together for you if you want to follow it. But here they're talking about the number of vessels, the number of containers they're talking about right here. And, you know, it's just the numbers are really, it's hard to put your head around it. Both ports have handled a monthly average of about 862 containers inbound this year. Inbound, not outbound, inbound this year. It talks about here that the flotilla either anchored outside the port or drifting further offshore until an anchored spot is available. There's a combined capacity, 400,000 containers. That's how many containers are afloat. Then you get this from, actually, this is a story right here from the Maersk CEO, where he's talking about the fact that out here is, I believe the story, actually, maybe this story right here. Sorry, I jumped ahead here in the story right here. But he's basically arguing that there's 9 to 10% of containers are basically afloat. Oh, here it is. Currently, 9 to 10% of global container capacity is sitting outside the ports waiting to discharge. The problem is particularly acute at Long Beach Port in Los Angeles, where some 60 container ships are waiting to discharge. 9 to 10% of all global container capacity is basically at anchor. And to put that into context, this is Alphalina's top 100 container carriers. Again, everything below Zim or maybe PIL really is insignificant in a large matter. They're less than 1%, even though some of these companies are directly in U.S. transport, like Matson way down here. But if you look at this, you get to see exactly 68 ships, 25 million container capacity, 25 million. And he's talking about 10%. He's talking about 2.5 million containers are jammed in here right now, basically waiting to be offloaded. And then you look at this story, and this is what this other story details here.
All right, Joker, take it easy. If we're still on, when you get off, we'll be here. But have a good night. Hey, Nick, Kat, and Boats. Thanks for coming. So what he was saying is, out of all these shipping containers that is out there, 9 to 10% of those shipping containers is just anchored, basically dead weight. So that just goes to show that our import system is not benefiting, because those vessels that is meant to be at a continuous one port to another port, loading and dropping off, they're just sitting there. And it's continuously increased. From when I first started looking this up to where we are right now, in an article that I had got from last night, the amount that is accumulating is just ridiculous. So we have empty shelves in our grocery stores because all of our food is just sitting in the ocean.
Here, but you start looking at Maersk, which handles 1 in 5 containers worldwide, now expects full year underlying earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. This is the EBITDA. Sometimes you just see EBITDA without the depreciation, of 22 to 23 billion dollars. They just upped that from their previous estimate of 18.19 to 19.5 billion. No, we were wrong in our estimate. We were up by $3 billion to $4 billion. They're going to make that much more money. It is insane the amount of money they're making. Absolutely insane the amount of money they're making on this. But I want to go back to this story that's coming out that the government is here to help. Now, again, I'd love to use marine traffic, and you're looking at these vessels, but let's come in here to the terminal for a second. I want to show you the terminal here at LA and Long Beach. And to understand how containers operate, especially on the West Coast, you've got your ships at anchor, you bring them into the terminal here. So for example, here's your terminal right here. Here's your vessels lined up here. And again, this is Google Earth, so those vessels are not exactly there. So the MSC Kalina's here, GSL Nicolita's there, the SFL Maui, APL Raffles, CMCJ Florida. You see the gantry cranes right here operating. Again, this vessel is actually not here. These are here. These gantry cranes move. And then you have this laydown area here. You've got rail line back here. You've got the bridge across here that goes in there. Same thing across the way. You've got laydown area, stacks. These containers are stacked multiple heights. But what makes LA Long Beach so enticing right here is the highway system and that rail system that comes out. You're jumping right onto the main highway system. You've got ships all in here, all throughout this area right here. Same thing over here in Long Beach. You can basically hop out and go. What the rumor is that they want LA Long Beach to go to 3 shifts. Right now they're on 2 shifts. So in other words, they want 24/7 operations going on. That does not solve the problem. What the Biden administration and what they're trying to do here is diminish the number of ships out in the anchorage by putting the containers on the dock. Understand something, that does no good. You can't chocker block the yard, the terminal with containers. You're going to slow things down more. If you have to multiple move containers, that's a problem. Plus, some of the containers on these ships are reefers, refrigerated containers, which need plugs, needs power, and you have a finite amount on land that you can do this. So you just can't start offloading containers, dumping them onto the terminal here if you can't get them out the gate. If you can't get them on trucks, on chassis, on railways, that's not what's going to solve this problem. Yeah, the short term, it makes the marine exchange data look better. Hey, we're not at 65 ships at anchor. We're the Biden administration. We're the presidential administration. We've got it down to 35. We are helping you. Means squat. If that material is sitting there on a terminal, it's as good as being afloat on a vessel. Let me be clear. It does not matter. And matter of fact, it makes it worse because now that ship that's sitting there is heading back to Asia to load up with more containers to bring back to you. And again, this situation is in LA Long Beach. And if you go out and look at different areas, like let's go off the port here of Savannah. Here's Savannah. You have an anchorage off Savannah right now where ships are lined up off the port of Savannah waiting to get in. Go off Houston. Even though you're going to see a lot of red here because the red represents tankers, you still see some green in there for container ships. And if you want to help, let me show you the place you help. This is San Francisco. This is San Francisco in the port of Oakland. You can see right here in San Francisco Bay, we've got ships in here. This is the terminal in the port of Oakland right here. This is the terminal in the port of Oakland. So we've got ships all lined up right here. But Oakland has got access to rail. You can see rail right in here. You can see highway right there. It's all good. The problem that Oakland has, it has finite space. Look at this. You're right up against residential in here. There's nowhere to go. If only there was a huge flat space that you could develop into a container yard in the port of Oakland. If only there was a huge flat space not being used anymore that you can use. That is the Naval Air Station of Alameda. NAS Alameda. NAS Alameda is no longer used as a Naval Air Station. Probably the most famous thing about the Naval Air Station Alameda in recent times, it's where the Mythbusters blew everything up. If you ever saw container ships in the background, they were right here, right along the side. This would be ideal. It would have to be dredged. It would have to be developed. You would have to put a highway rail bridge probably linking in over here of some kind. But massive laydown area you can develop. You can push off into the bay, but again, California's gonna be really tough doing that. But if you want to talk about how to alleviate this in the short term, there's very little you can do beyond let's get more truck drivers out there, let's get more chassis out there, let's improve the rail system, let's make it more affordable to be a truck driver in this country. Again, Truck Driver Appreciation Week, appreciate you guys, but basically telling them, hey, you're going to get fines if you miss your gate appointment is not really being nice. We need substantial infrastructure. Understand, one of the unique things about the port of LA and Long Beach is the ships that come in here offload nearly their entire cargo. Nearly everything comes off this boat. These ships don't tend to go up and down the coast to Tacoma, to Oakland, and then to LA and Long Beach too much. They come in there and they dump everything. And then they load up and go back. And most containers ships offload maybe 20% of their cargoes when they come into ports. When they come into LA and Long Beach, it's 70, 80% most times. That is a unique thing, which puts a big push and stress on the LA Long Beach system. And that's the problem we're seeing. Now, of course, you're routing other ships through the Panama Canal, but even if you come down here to the Panama Canal, coming off the anchorages off the Panama Canal, you got ships waiting to go in. And the Panama Canal, again, is constrained by the limitations of the canal. When the canal did its upgrade, opened the lane in 2016, 3 years after the introduction of the Maersk Triple E, the big ultra-large container vessels, they can't handle them because that canal was designed back in 2005, 2006. And the biggest container ships envisioned at that time were 12,000 boxes, which is what the canal can handle. So we find ourselves with a massive infrastructure issue going on. And that's why the infrastructure bill is so important. It needs to be developed. We need to improve road and rail. We need to develop ports. We need to improve the ability to move containers. That's what needs to be done. Ordering the port of LA Long Beach to go 3 ships, same thing with Savannah, same thing with all these other ports, doesn't do squat. Makes politicians feel better. It will diminish the number of ships that are showing up in Marine Exchange daily update, but it is not what needs to be done. And again, said this on Freightwaves yesterday, and I'll say it again.
So from that video, basically what we could take from it is that we have a problem and there's ways to solve it. He brought up infrastructure, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. But when you have politicians that want to make an infrastructure bill that doesn't even include but a small, like 1-digit percentage of infrastructure, then the problem's not going to get solved. They're wanting to unload all these cargo containers and just let them sit on docks, but that doesn't get food in our grocery stores. And I had a video about the truckers where a truck driver who's a prepper actually was interviewing several truck drivers, and it was basically there's a lot of truckers that is facing going on strike because of their companies mandating. I'm sure y'all can take it from there, but a lot of truckers is patriots. They're conservatives for the most part. So when you're forcing something on them, they will go on strike. So then that makes a backup in the supply chain as well. And there was was that an Amtrak in Montana? There was a train that was derailed that ended up messing up the railroad system. So when you have containers that ride on that railway system, now it's going to be yes, I agree, Mickey. I did have that article from Facebook, which is actually what enticed me to start doing this, looking into the cargo containers. But that video that I just played was from a week ago, and I have an updated video him. But first, I'm going to play this. This video is from yesterday. Well, it's a news article. This is from yesterday with updated numbers. This is CBS local to Los Angeles, and
Drivers say there's 6.
Come on now.
10 o'clock. Big problems at the Port of LA. The backlog of ships and their cargo has reached a boiling point. Truck drivers say they're sick and tired of waiting all day long for the loads. And tonight, the director of the port says there's only so much he can do to tackle that massive problem.
As KCAL 9 Orange County reporter Stacy Butler tells us tonight, he's demanding help now from the feds.
Almost 70 cargo ships and counting from Long Beach to Laguna.
It's getting worse every day.
I've been trucking 31 years. 31 years.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, this is a phenomenal, for real. This is bad.
Few are more frustrated about the backlog at the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach than truck drivers caught in the chaos.
I got friends right now, they are in line at Hanji in TTI terminal from 9 o'clock in the morning, and they haven't pulled the load yet. The longshoremen and the people inside, they get paid by the hour, but not the drivers.
Some blame outdated infrastructure, importers with nowhere to store the containers, and dock help not keeping up with demand.
Last night I was there from 8 o'clock to 3 in the morning, and I couldn't get, they kicked me out because they leave at 3 o'clock, so I'm out. And they only have, one crane for 60 trucks. And you know what the thing is? It's ridiculous. They have 2 other cranes sitting.
So how often does it happen where you show up, wait 8 hours, and then get turned away?
Wow, man. Like, out of 10, a good 6 or 7 times.
Gene Soroka, the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, just finished a massive study of the port's weak spots. He knows truckers need help. He just launched Accelerate Cargo LA, a pilot program to get cargo moving and fast. But it likely won't be enough. He says the feds have got to step in.
Over the last 10 years, the federal government and Congress has outinvested West Coast ports at a rate 11-1. That's got to change. And with an infrastructure bill pending vote in Congress this week, we need all eyes on Los Angeles. This is what 10 years of underinvestment looks like, and we need to move forward.
One of the biggest problems out here is finding a place for containers like this one on its way to a warehouse in the IE. We're told that those warehouses are 99% full. There's nowhere to put them. So a lot of the containers are staying at the ports longer than they ever have in history. In Long Beach, Stacey Butler, KCAL 9 News.
So yeah, infrastructure is a big problem. And when you saw, he said one lift working when they have two just sitting there. Truck drivers that is showing up for their delivery appointment and sitting all day long to be turned around to say come back, just because the employees had to leave. So all of this is nothing but a downward spiral. And when you have the trucking industry relying on the deliveries at these ports and these railway systems, and when there's a little kink in it, it affects everybody. I mean, we get affected, but we're not in the system as far as trying to make all these demands. So Nick said if anyone is interested, there is trucker group on Facebook that is constant info. Stop the Tires 2020. Hey, Azralina and Jen. Thanks for coming. I just lost my train of thought. So yeah, this goes back to what we've said before. We need to make sure that we take care of ourselves. We need to start making sure our cabinets are full, even if the supply chain has a kink in it. We don't know how long this is going to last. And I just went to the store a while ago, and there is holes in the shelf. Okay, Nick, I'll go check it out. I'll actually send it to my dad as well, because he's a truck driver. So is my brother. So I do have a little bit of, I guess, back knowledge of how some of it works. Not a lot, but yeah, this is another crisis that is being ignored. When they're saying just empty these containers and put them on the docks, that doesn't mean that our grocery stores are getting full, because the truckers aren't being able to get offloaded or uploaded. So I did grab a recent video. Your daddies were too. You have to appreciate it, because if you don't appreciate the truckers, then you're basically unaware of how society runs. Like, society can't run off of not having truckers and not having the railway system. This video is going to be by the same guy. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I did want to show how some of these big box businesses is trying to work around these anchored shipping containers by transporting their own goods. This one is Costco is chartering 3 container ships bound for the West Coast. And this is by the same guy. What's going on with shipping?
Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano, former merchant mariner, maritime historian, and an instructor in maritime history, maritime security, and maritime industry policy. So, news coming out today that Costco is joining the bandwagon of IKEA, of Walmart, of a whole batch of companies that have been chartering vessels to transport their goods, kind of bypassing the big container ship companies. And we're going to talk about that story in some detail right now. So here's the story on freight waves. Rent a ship, Costco hires vessels for urgent deliveries. Now, as I said before, we've seen this happening. The story goes to tell us that Issaquah, a Washington-based company, has chartered 3 small ocean vessels for a year and leased several thousand containers to move export merchandise from Asia to the U.S. and Canada. The vessels can carry 8 to 1,000 containers and will each make about 10 trips during the 1-year lease period. Their capacity is tiny compared to Costco's overall import volume, but reflects the extreme tightness of the container shipping market and delays that have more than doubled delivery times for importers, depending on the inland distribution system. I said before, these are destroying Home Depot, Walmart, and IKEA. And I've done stories on these. I did a story on All Aboard, the MV Home Depot edition, and I did a story about Welcome Aboard, the motor vessel Walmart. So we've already talked about this a lot. But what makes this story really interesting to me is for the first time, we're getting some details here on the types of vessels they're looking at chartering and what's going on. Now, the story goes into great detail, but what I want to cover in here is a couple of key points that are going on. First thing, the container ship backlog that we're seeing, this is not going away anytime soon. Go over here to G Captain, a story that was published today by Mike Schuller. Mayor says port congestion and supply chain bottlenecks persist through year end. And they're probably going to go far beyond that, too. I've seen discussions about this lasting until 2023. We're already in the Golden Week. We got Christmas, Chinese New Year coming up, which is times that China shuts down, basically. And we see all of a sudden blank sailings of vessels reaching large proportions. Golden Week this year hits the first week in October, so we're going to see slowdowns coming out of China with that. And one of the things that Maersk is talking about already is the fact that we're seeing basically demand projected at 6 to 8% in 2021, reflecting strong first half as well as ongoing demand strength in the U.S. and partly in Europe. So right now we know demand is strong. We see that going on. We know out on the water that we're seeing basically backlogs all over. And we're seeing that shape up. And in the ports, we're seeing it. It's a great report by Mike Schuller, really goes in some details about it. I mentioned to you before the term blank sailing. This is a story out of Container News. The alliance leads the blank sailing race. There are 3 large shipping alliances. Talk about them in a second. But basically what they're talking about is over the next 4 weeks, the alliance has announced 20 cancellations, followed by the 2 other alliances, 2M and the Ocean Alliance, with 14 and 6 cancellations. This is calling for about 80% of these blank sailings are occurring on the Asia, North America, and Asia, North Europe mid-runs. In other words, they're canceling the sailings. They're just not going to sail vessels. They're basically canceling the ship showing up on berth and delivering cargo. A lot of reasons for this. Well, one of the main reasons is they're so backed up, there's no reason to load the ships and just sail them out there if they're not going to move. And the other reason, too, is they're keeping prices at the level they're at. We've already seen stories coming out about prices starting to come down. There was a story the other week about Hop Hog and CMCGM setting their rates, locking in at their rates. There's concerns that rates may start to begin to decline a little bit. Carriers are locking in their rates, and we're seeing these. Now, I should mention that we do see blank sailings during this time of year. That is fairly routine. The question is whether or not these blank sailings should be taking place right now during this period. But let's come on back to the Costco story, because this is the story, again, that I kind of talked about here. I want to kind of lead you into here and discuss. So Costco leasing 3 ships, about 8 to 100 containers. So what type of vessels are we talking about here? Well, I want to show you. I don't know what type of vessels they are. I don't know where they're getting them from. But this is from a company called U.S. Ocean, a U.S. flagged carrier that operates ships that are designed for unique lifts. These vessels tend to be kind of heavy lift vessels. They can carry oversized cargo, but there's some unique features of these vessels. One of the first is they're not container carriers, but they have fittings on deck to lash containers down. They have their own cranes, which means they can load the cargo and offload the cargo. That's going to be very important, because that may be a prospect. And what we expect to see is vessels similar to this being leased and chartered. They talked about the fact that these are 800 to 1,000 TEU vessels. Those are extremely small vessels. Give you an idea, this shows you what basically modern container ships look like. Right now, down at the very bottom end, those are the big ones we're talking about. Ships like Ever Given fall in this bottom category right down here. These vessels that are basically down here, what they call MGX 24s. Ships capable of, they're wider than 24 bays, can carry over 24,000 containers. You can see the size. Even the earliest container ships go back to the early 1950s. If you go back to 1956, the SS Ideal X carried 58 containers, but very quickly they were designing container ships that can carry between 200 to 600 containers. So what we're talking about is basically modifying a vessel for a different mission and using it to carry containers. That's what Costco is looking to do. That's what they're aiming to get around. Now, most container ships, as you see right here, don't have cranes on board. In other words, they have to go into ports and offload. And that's what we see. So if you look right here, this is the port of LA and Long Beach. This is for marine traffic. If you come into the port of LA and Long Beach right here, zoom in here on you a little bit. On the left side here, you see LA. This is the LA side of the docks right here. This is all LA right here by Terminal Island. Here you can see vessels MSC Savonia in. You can see the President Roosevelt in, MSC Ariana, NY Key Daedalus right up there. Everleading, one of Ever Given ships are right there. YM Travel up here. Over on the Long Beach side, MSC Livorno, MSC Averini. The Nord Titan is off of the anchorage right there. Costco Oceana, and you can see vessels at the berths and working cargo. Out here is that big anchorage we keep talking about, the green or container ships. These are ships out in the anchorage, but if you zoom out even further, you'll see lots of green anchored out here, other vessels milling about. There's a lot of vessels in there. The ships that Costco are getting, these renter ships that Costco is getting, cannot go into LA and Long Beach because they can't get on those terminals. But since these ships will have their own cranes, they'll be able to go in terminals that are not busy or occupied. And that gives them actually some options right there where they want to go. 8 to 1,000 TEU vessels will be much smaller. They can go to ports not typically where we see these container ships in. So we're talking about Portland. We're talking about Oakland. We're talking about the Seattle, Tacoma area, Wainimi. There are different options where they can go. Now, they still have to make arrangements ashore for offload. They have to make arrangements for trucking. They have to make arrangements for all that. But these are one of the things we're seeing these carriers, these shippers get into, is ways to avoid the carriers who are basically locking them out with vessels in demand. Right now, we have massive anchorages of all the ports. We have vessels crossing. We have delays in China right now. These are ways to kind of keep the flow moving. And what you would expect to see coming on these Costco ships is high value, low density cargo. In other words, products that are small, tiny, but worth a lot. And that's one of the things they want to do. This is very unique because one of the things that this is going to do is challenge the big carriers out there, the big ocean carriers out there. For those of you who've watched this video a lot and have seen earlier videos about this, you've heard me say this before. One of the things that makes container shipping so unique is that the top 10 carriers control 85% of all the container shipping in the world. They are unique. They're in a dominant position. And not only are the top 10 in a dominant position, the top 9 are in 3 alliances. So if you see right here, Maersk and MSC, Maersk, which is Danish, MSC, which is Swiss, they're in the 2M alliance. That is the biggest alliance out there, the most ships with the most carrying capacity. They are powerful entities out there in the trade. Now, not all these ships are owned by Maersk. Not all these ships are owned by MSC. We did another video on that where we talked about that they lease a lot of vessels. But then you have the alliance. The alliance is made up of 4 firms. Hapag-Lloyd here, which is German. ONE, which is actually a compilation of Japanese shipping lines. ONE actually stands for the Ocean Network Express. HMM, which is South Korean, used to be the old Hyundai Merchant Marine. Now it's just HMM. And then Yangmin, which is a Taiwanese firm. And they make up the alliance. And then the last one out there is the Ocean Alliance. And this is really the second largest out here. That's made up by CMA CGM, which is a French firm. Costco Shipping, which is a Chinese firm, not Taiwan. This is mainland China. And then also Evergreen, which is a Taiwanese firm. Really interesting to see a mainland China, PRC, People's Republic of China, and a Republic of China, Taiwan company together. But those are the big alliances. And that's one of the issues we're seeing right now, is that these 3 alliances, those 9 companies, the 10th one, Zim, is Israeli, and they're kind of outside on the fringe, although they provide a substantial service. But the 9 top ones are the ones that really dominate the trade. Again, you come in here and you start looking at ships in here, and you start seeing them in here. You see Hyundai, you see Maersk, you see Ever is Evergreen in there. You'll see them in there all the time, and you'll notice them in here. Wanhai, which is another one of those firms. We see them out there. You can see them playing a major role. Maersk out here with the Evora. These companies really have a dominant control in the trade. And what companies like Costco, Home Depot, this is not the Home Depot ship, by the way. That's the Ever Given. I just put Home Depot on the side of it. So that's not what they're chartering. And Walmart are trying to do is get some priority cargo out there. They can book on the big carriers. The problem they have with booking on the big carriers is they're getting charged surcharges, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to get their cargo through. You got ships waiting off LA Long Beach right now for 3 weeks. Ships are crossing now. There's no guarantee that they're going to get that cargo off on time and then into a transportation system ashore in the United States that is packed to the gills and not clear they're going to get product onto the shelves when they need it by Black Thursday and during the Thanksgiving to Christmas holiday period. So shippers are taking methods into their own hands. Hence, we're going to see more stories like this probably coming in the near future.
Okay, so that just goes to show that some of these big box companies is trying to take matters into their own hands to make sure that. So why don't they hit Texas? I don't know. It seems like they would, instead of going to Los Angeles, they would change their port. Excuse me. But where was I going to go? So these big box companies is taking matters into their own hands, and by them doing that, they're trying to make sure that their stores don't fall behind in their deliveries, which is a good thing, to be honest, to make sure that they do stay stocked up. But whenever you have all those ships, all those ships that's just sitting there, some of those containers also supply small businesses. So not only is it hurting grocery stores, it's also hurting other types of entrepreneurships who's falling behind. And when you have small businesses that relies on the sale of their goods for a profit to pay the employees, it can hurt them a little more tragically than it can hurt one of those big box stores. Nick sent me something, and I'm going to read off of that for a second because it was kind of interesting. This is push for driverless trucks. Stop, look at me, move. Trucking group pushes US DOT to help accelerate deployment of driverless trucks. Washington, D.C., trucking most powerful lobbyist is pushing the Biden administration to do more to help speed the deployment of driverless trucks. In letters sent last week to United States Department of Transportation, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, the American Trucking Associations, urged regulators to accelerate the removal of regulatory barriers preventing the adoption of automated vehicles. As the automated vehicle industry moves from research and development to deployment, we urge the department to use its authority to foster a pathway from near-term AV development AV deployment. ATA's letter states, among other benefits, AV's present and unprecedented opportunity to promote and advance transportation safely, increase access to mobility for undeserved communities, and improve the efficiency of freight movement in the U.S. logistics system. ATA also argued implementing a federal AV framework that fosters the safe deployment of AVs can help the Biden administration to shepherd in a safe, more environmentally friendly, we're talking about go green, and accessible transportation future. Down here it says nearly a dozen other transportation-related business groups join ATA in the effort, including U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Consumer Technology Association, Partnership for Transportation Innovation and Opportunity, Self-Driving Coalition for Safer Streets, American Chemistry Council, American Highway Users Alliance, Automotive Service Association, Motor and Equipment Manufacturers Association, National Association of Manufacturers, and Intelligent Transportation Society of America. I don't know how that would work. Driverless trucks. That would omit people being hired as a trucker and just basically have a climate change truck on the streets. I don't know if that, I don't know. I don't even know how that would work, because you got a driverless truck riding down the interstate with no one being able to control it. I mean, it's an idea, but I don't. Nick said AI is replacing all human abilities, fully automated cars, self-checkout, and much more. They want us on our knees. Yeah. Like, anybody who knows Pete Buttigieg knows he is a gung-ho climate change nut. So are they trying to make self-driving trains? By doing all of this automated crap, they are eliminating people from working. Like, if I go to Walmart, I'll stand in line for 20 minutes before I go to a self-checkout, unless I have like one thing and self-checkout's backed up to the fitting room. But all these mechanisms, even having little robots stocking the shelves, so they're not hiring people to stock it for them. Like, they're talking about these minimum wage jobs, how they're not making enough money, but they're trying to omit these minimum wage type jobs by having little robots do it for them. So from there, we're going to move on to this sweet fluff fund that they're trying to pass. I'm going to start out with this little video. It's only 45 seconds long.
This is their bill, 2,500 pages. If you take a look at $3.5 trillion price tag and you do the math, that's $1.4 billion for every page of this bill. And they want to pass it this week. How many Democrats do you think have read this? Think Nancy Pelosi's read it? Think Chuck Schumer's read it? Do you think Joe Biden, who is desperately begging Democrats to pass it, do you think he's read it? Do you think he knows what's in it?
So yeah, that big old stack, 2,500 pages that they're trying to pass, and they don't even know what's in it. They just know little hot spots that's in it. So we're going to start talking about some of that. And I know some people can say, well, they don't have enough support. Manchin's not going for it right now. Cinema's not going for it right now. But you can never put your faith in the government. You don't know if Mitt Romney's going to get blackmailed and go along with them. There's so much stuff going on with this socialist bill that it could really be the damning end of America, pretty much. Not to mention with them trying to raise the debt ceiling. There's so much stuff in this bill that you can say infrastructure. There's no infrastructure. There's no infrastructure in that bill. Human infrastructure, like that's a term that they just made up. And I'm sure that they've put it in the Webster dictionary now because they like to change words in the dictionary after a liberals come up with it. But human infrastructure doesn't exist. Infrastructure is built from the ground up, foundation, mechanisms used in our society to enable us, mostly in travels, also in buildings, people getting their hands dirty to build it. Childcare is not an infrastructure. And it's not the American people's responsibility to pay for childcare. The next video I got is Schumer blows a gasket on the Senate floor. Something else to take in consideration is that even if this doesn't get passed this week, it's something that they will be pushing continuously. If it doesn't get passed, it'll get brought back up again. So don't have all your eggs in one basket saying that it's not going to get passed because you got Pelosi doing some scandalous stuff just to make sure that it does.
Schumer blowing a gasket on the Senate floor after Republicans beat him. Chuck Schumer lost it on the Senate floor in response to Republicans killing his move to raise the debt ceiling. The Biden administration is not getting a lot of wins so far, and it seems like they just lost another one in the Senate. So let's dig into the details in just a minute. But if this is your first time at the Next News Network, hit the red button down below to subscribe, then tap that notification bell to ensure you get more video reports like this. Before I get to that, a man, he went missing in the Grand Canyon. He was recently found alive and well. 48-year-old Arturo Hernandez was found. Access to clean drinking water is a major factor, whether lost hikers are found alive or not. That's why I highly recommend this. It sanitizes and boils water with just sunlight. So get 15% off of your solar water heater for the next 24 hours by going to solarwaterheater.com or by clicking the link below. Just make sure you enter promo code NNN20. Now back to the news. Let's go to Christina Layla at the Gateway Pundit, who reports that the Senate GOP blocked a measure that would raise the debt ceiling. The bill needed 60 yay votes to overcome the filibuster and open debate. The vote total was 48 yays and 50 nays, and Schumer blew a gasket. Quote, Senate Republicans are playing games with the full faith and credit of the United States. That's what he said, adding that Social Security checks, Medicare benefits, veteran benefits, and more are on the chopping block. Watch.
After today, there will be no doubt about which party in this chamber is working to solve the problems that face our country and which party is accelerating us towards unnecessary, avoidable disaster. At the end of last week, I filed cloture on proceeding to the continuing resolution sent to us by the House of Representatives, which, among other things, would prevent a government shutdown and suspend the debt limit so we can pay for our debts incurred during the previous administration. In a few hours, we will vote on cloture on the motion to proceed to this bill. The Democrats will do the responsible thing, the right thing, the thing that's been done for decades by both parties, and vote yes. Now, if Republicans follow through with their plans to vote no, they will be on record deliberately sabotaging our country's ability to pay the bills and likely causing the first ever default in American history. The consequences of a default would be, in the words of Secretary Yellen, catastrophic. The best case scenario is, the best case under this awful situation is that our country would fall into another recession, potentially erasing all the progress we have made to pull ourselves out of the COVID crisis. That is, if we're lucky. Otherwise, one analysis warned that default could hurt Americans for generations.
Schumer is expected to bring
So he's threatening to take money out of Social Security, Medicare, and VA benefits to cover their garbage. That's not going to happen. I mean, I get VA benefits, but it comes from a separate account. It's not taxpayer dollars from what I get. But I think it's really, really scandalous that he's actually using words to blame the Republicans because they don't want to side with him to raise the debt ceiling when they are in the process of trying to get $3.5 trillion passed. Doesn't make a lot of sense with me. And I'm sure it doesn't with y'all either. We are at, what's our debt right now? 28, it's over 28 trillion. And they just want to keep raising it and raising it. How about let's take money away from the politicians that keep giving themselves raises for doing nothing, but they want to keep taking tax dollars from us and raise the debt ceiling so they can spend human infrastructure. I'm not going to do a hillbilly right now, but it doesn't make no sense to me, to be honest. And yeah, votes. He's wanting to, if the Republicans don't agree with raising the debt ceiling, he's taking money away from Social Security, Medicare, and veteran benefits. So in order for them to get the money they need, they're going to rob it from those that earned it. Yeah. Just let that sink in. So enough with Chucky. So we're going to move on to Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, Brooke, I'm doing one. I'm hoping that nothing comes out of it, to be honest. It's just mind boggles me that it's like they know the Republicans don't want that to happen, which is why they're trying to say that they're going to take money from Social Security, Medicare, and veteran benefits because they know that the Republicans stand by all those. But by taking money away from that, you're taking money away from people that put time in to earn that stuff. So you have people getting welfare that get it freely, and then you got all these illegals that just come in that's going to assume free money, but you want to take money away and out of the system for those people that put their time and effort in throughout the years. Let's just hope nothing comes about it. But yeah, it does piss me off too. This one is from Newsmax. Pelosi mistakenly calls Biden's plan Obama's.
Keep government open. We have to do those imminently, more imminently even, to address the full Obama agenda of building back better.
Madam Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, apparently catching some of Joe Biden's loss of mental acuity after calling the current occupier of the Oval Office's Build Back Better plan Obama's agenda. Now, some are saying the only gaffe Pelosi committed was slipping up and telling the truth. Biden is an empty shell, and his people are carrying out Obama's third term. Joining me now to discuss is the host of the Trish Regan Show and editor-in-chief of TrishIntel.com, Trish Regan herself. What do you think, lady? Team Biden looks an awful lot like Team Obama. Did Pelosi just actually say the quiet part out loud?
Yeah, perhaps that's exactly what she did. Look, I think the teams are the same. The people are different, right? And I would give Obama, dare I say, a little bit of credit for on Good Morning America yesterday admitting that we are a nation state and we do need borders. That was like a smack in the face to the current administration. But look, it's the same team. It's the same people involved making some very similar mistakes. There's an agenda. I would argue that in some ways that agenda has been dramatically radicalized, Chris. This is not even Obama's agenda. This is an agenda of those that were entrenched in the Obama team, the deep state, if you would, right? Those in politics that have made this their career, and they are taking anything that Obama did that much further. I mean, I would argue on the stimulus, right? I mean, Obama feels quaint at $800 billion. That's how much his stimulus to nowhere was. Now we're looking at 3.5 trillion, which they're trying to tell us somehow, some way is actually zero.
I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that. New study in the meantime published by the Texas Public Policy Foundation says that Biden's big government agenda will kill 5.3 million jobs, put our nation $4.5 trillion further in debt, and the U.S. gross domestic product will be reduced by $3.7 trillion, which is nearly the entire cost of Biden's entire Build Back busting budget. It looks like his Build Back Better plan is really a bust, no?
I mean, it's a disaster. It is a disaster, and America knows it, which is why they're trying to convince you somehow that this is $0 and it's not going to actually cause you a tax increase. That's not going to fly. I mean, that study in particular is spot on in that they're recognizing that it will cost us not just 3.5 trillion, but 3.7 trillion because they're factoring in interest, right? I mean, let alone inflation. Look, the reality is we can't afford this, Chris. We're doing okay. My recommendation to everyone in DC would be to leave the status quo for a while, let the economy breathe, let people go back to work, stop offering so many unemployment benefits, and let Americans do what they know how to do best, which is to make money, right? I mean, that's why we are the #1 economy in the world. We got this. We don't need the interference of the Biden, or should I say Obama team, trying to tell us how to do things. And that's the biggest mistake that they are making, not trusting the American people. And by the way, they think we're so dumb and so stupid that they can tell us this is going to cost $0.
I know. And you know what? You brought it up a couple of times, so we just got to address this. This whole idea that spending, actually, it's not 3.5, it's closer to $5 trillion is zero because they're going to tax the bejesus out of all of us. That's insane. And let me give you a microcosm of this. Biden, Pelosi, even clueless members of the media are trying to say that this will cost America zero, as we just detailed. And aside from the mathematical impossibility of that being factual, this attempt to substitute slogans for substance, shouldn't that just give us an instinct here for Americans to reach for their wallet? Because if you've got to try to say that 5 trillion is actually zero, that means that real hurt is coming, yes?
Well, it means that they're trying to sell you something. And look, there was another poll out today by Politico Ipsos, and they showcased the fact that Americans don't trust Biden on a number of things. And Americans can't trust Biden on the economy. I mean, that's very, very clear. I mean, the fact that he would stand up there and try and spout this nonsense, and Democrats that are pushing this as well, I'm sorry, this is not partisan, this is just math, okay? 3.5 trillion is 3.5 trillion. It will cost us something, especially in that because of the higher taxes that they're also pushing on Americans, you're going to have less investment. I mean, that's just the reality. You're going to have less investment in the future, and thus a pullback in the economy. The other thing that I would point out, and that nobody's talking about, is that they are actually not taxing the uber wealthy on Wall Street. There's such a thing called the private equity carried interest loophole. And before I bore you to death, just know this. It's called the fat cat tax loophole. And this loophole enables billionaire private equity Wall Street bankers to count their income as investment. As such, they pay less percentage-wise in income tax than, say, a firefighter in New York City. And so what really gets me is just the hypocrisy of it all over again. They say they're going after the rich. They're really just going after high earners, people that are working and making a lot of money. They're not going after the fat cats that are making the billions, because guess what, Chris? Those are the same exact guys that are donating to Biden's campaign. So that really makes my blood boil.
Rich and the powerful are now wholly owned subsidiaries of the Democrat Socialist Party. You should see the tobacco taxes. Now, who do you think the tobacco? I mean, we're talking about 1,000% increase on taxes. I mean, good grief. I'm putting it up there on the screen just so everybody can see. That's what Biden's plan is. Who's that going to hurt? The middle and the lower classes. That doesn't hurt the upper classes. That's going to just be so much harm. Trish Regan, thank you, lady. Appreciate the time and the expertise as always here on the Salcedo Show. Talk to you again.
So with Nancy Pelosi's slip up, was it an accident? Do y'all think it was an accident? Do y'all think she meant it? Is it really Obama's administration? His third term? Or is it just the fact that everybody that Biden put on his administration is actual people that worked on the Obama administration? It's probably all rolled into one. I'm sure Obama has a lot of influence in the plan. But as far as taxing the rich or taxing those taxing the rich, it will never work out, because they're saying that it'll all be paid for, and they're saying that only those that earn $400,000 or more is going to be affected. But if you add everybody's wealth together that's above that, it doesn't even reach halfway of that 3.5 trillion. So that just lets you know that there's other stuff, like they're trying to put the what do they call that? Basically mileage tax. They're trying to do little things like mileage tax affects us. When you are taking from the middle class, the working class, it's only good. Socialism. Let's socialism. But Obama is pulling Joe Biden's apron strings. Him, among others, all the above. Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, like, all of those corrupt people bleed in together. There's no difference between an Obama and a Nancy Pelosi, and it's almost like all of them are puppets because they don't have a mind of their own. You can hear Nancy Pelosi say a speech and then hear Chuck Schumer say a speech, and it's almost like they're regurgitating the same thing, because all they are is just talking points, walking heads. And then it goes over into the media where you hear Don Lemon saying the same thing Nancy Pelosi says. So they're like little parrots, and they just do what they're told by the donors, like a Soros. But with all of this socialistic tactics that they're trying to do, it's to weaken society and let their wealth maintain. I have a clip from Dan Bongino, and he is going to say something and put it into a way that it dumbifies it for even a toddler could understand what's going on. And he's talking about the debt ceiling. He's talking about the 3.5, all of it together. And then he also brings up reasons why they're pushing it so hard.
What's going on behind the scenes with this $3.5 trillion? We'll call it the wokerupsy bill. It is the woke bankruptcy bill, so it's wokerupsy. The wokerupsy bill, the drama going on behind the scenes is really starting to eat Nancy Pelosi alive. She snapped at a reporter yesterday. I'm going to give you just the quick rundown of the problem the Democrats find themselves in right now trying to pass this $3.5 trillion just monstrosity of a bill. It'll transform the entire U.S. economy into a hellhole. So here's Pelosi yesterday when a reporter asks her about the debt ceiling that the Democrats, not Republicans, have roped into this spending package. The Democrats have said to Republicans, the hike in the debt ceiling, you guys have to vote for this. And if you don't, we're going to say you shut down the government. She tied it into all this. I'll explain it in a second, but watch her snap at the reporter because she can't wrangle and herd cats in her own caucus. Check this out.
Why get mad at members? Why twist the arms of moderates if this is not going to move anywhere?
What are you talking about? We have a responsibility to uphold, to lift up the full faith and credit of the United States of America. That's what we have to do. These members have all voted for this last week.
Okay, a couple things here. What's going on and why is she snapping? She can't herd cats in her own caucus. Check this out.
Why get mad at members? Why twist the arms of moderates if this is not going to move anywhere?
What are you talking about? We have a responsibility to uphold, to lift up the full faith and credit of the United States of America. That's what we have to do. These members have all voted for this last week.
Okay, a couple things here. What's going on and why is she snapping? She can't herd the cats in her own caucus. The Democrats have the slimmest of margins in the House and in the Senate. Everybody tracking? They have a 5-vote majority in the House of Representatives, which Pelosi's obviously the Speaker of. They have a no-vote majority in the Senate. It's 50-50, but Kamala Harris, the VP, is the tiebreaker. So she'd obviously vote for the Democrat agenda. But it is a 50-50 split. Here's the problem number one they're having. Go to this Washington Examiner piece if you don't mind. There are 3 things up in the air right now, okay? We got to keep all these 3 things in mind so you have the skinny and we can explain it to you in a Reader's Digest format, right? Number 1, there's the debt ceiling. If the debt ceiling isn't hiked, the government is effectively going to go de facto bankrupt soon. So they have to raise the debt ceiling to borrow more money, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, they have this $3.5 trillion wokerupsy bill that Joe Biden wants. It's going to transform everything. It's going to be a disaster. Number 3, they have the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which bizarrely has some amount of bipartisan support. Okay, so those 3 things are out there right now. Those are the variables. Here's problem number 1. The moderates in the Congress, they call themselves moderates, folks. We don't actually believe they're Democrat moderates. Can we just get that out of the way? Don't email me and say you called them moderate. They call themselves moderates. I don't. The allegedly moderate Democrats don't want the $3.5 trillion bill. They think it's too big in the House. They're afraid they're going to lose their seats if they vote for this because they're going to bankrupt the country. You tracking? She only has a 5-vote majority. So if 10 alleged moderates on the Democrat side say, we're not voting for the $3.5 trillion bill, it's dead. Well, what's the other problem? And I'll read this Washington Examiner quote in a minute. Sorry, I set Guy up and then left him hanging there. The liberals, the AOC types, they are demanding that the moderates vote for this $3.5 trillion bill. And they're saying, the liberals are saying to the alleged moderates, we're not voting for your $1 trillion infrastructure bill unless you vote for our $3.5 trillion woke-rupsy bill. So from the Washington Examiner, here they sum it up nicely. David Drucker's piece will be in the newsletter today. Pelosi signaled Wednesday that the intra-party logjam could delay a planned Thursday vote on infrastructure. Pelosi, among the most effective legislative leaders of her generation, I debate that, has been stymied by the fact that she doesn't have a majority large enough to allow her to side with the liberals over the centrists or vice versa. With Republicans declining to bail Pelosi out, she needs every Democratic vote at her disposal. You tracking? So number one, the libs don't have enough votes on the full radical leftists to pass this $3.5 trillion woke-rupsy bill on their own. Yet the centrist alleged moderates don't have enough votes to pass the infrastructure bill. So Pelosi's trying to herd them all together. And both of them are saying, double-barreled, family-friendly middle finger, we are not voting for this bill. The moderates are saying we're not voting for the $3.5 trillion bill. The libs are saying, well, we're not voting for the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. You can both pound sand, and Pelosi can't herd them. So in an effort, this is where variable 3 comes in. And Joe, Guy, you must stop me if it doesn't make sense, of course, as the ombudsman for the audience. Pelosi figures, given that there's some small amount, which I don't agree with, it shouldn't be, of bipartisan support for the infrastructure bill, right? We can maybe steal a few Republicans, and therefore I don't need the libs, and I can get enough votes to pass it without it. So what she did is she tied in the debt ceiling to this bill. It has nothing to do with it, but she tied it in. And so they do it. They did it on the Senate side as well. And what they did is they told the Republicans, if you don't vote for this infrastructure and other stuff, we are going to tie in this debt ceiling hike. And if you don't vote for that, we're going to blame you for shutting the government down. You get it? You vote for this crap, or we're shutting the government down and we're going to blame you.
Right. Okay.
You got it? Well, what's the problem with that? You guys picking up what the problem with that is? How are you going to blame the Republicans for shutting the government down if you have the votes by yourself to keep it open with not a single Republican?
Right.
She has a 5-vote majority, and there's a tie-breaking vote in the Senate. She doesn't need the Republicans ever. Now, she has control. That's why she blew up at the reporter about the debt ceiling thing. And what did she say? Remember the cut? Just rewind it and play it again. She said, not Yugi, the audience, they can rewind. He's getting ready to rewind. She says at the end, the guy asks her about why she's strong-arming people. And what does she bring up right away? The debt ceiling, you're going to bankrupt the government. She can open up the government right now. She doesn't need the the Republicans at all. How long, if they shut the government down, before people figure out this simple math? Think about it. The government shut down, right? And nobody likes the government shut. And by the way, it's the government has to shut down because the Democrats are idiots. Shut it down. But that's their call. How long? A week? A month? Think about this, guys. A week? A month? 2 months? Before even the most ardent left-wing radical nuts start to say to themselves, hey, guys, this sounds kind of dumb, blaming the Republicans. I mean, you could open this thing tomorrow and everybody knows it. Now, showing you how bad this predicament they find themselves in really is. Here's Robert Reich, like the most hard leftist you've ever.
Those 3 things. The Democrats having this little debate. Hey, Mustang. Democrats having this little debate where you have the AOCs, the squad, and the socialists basically saying that the 3.5 trillion is not enough. And then Nancy Pelosi's not wanting to raise it. So you got AOC's people saying, well, I'm not going to vote for the lower package if you don't increase the higher package. So they're having this little debate. But do you really think when it really comes down to it, if they have a chance to do was it 1.2 trillion? If they really have a chance to get that passed, do you think they're not going to vote on it? They're trying to blackmail Pelosi to increase it. But I think when it comes, you can't trust them. That's why I said earlier, you may think that they don't have the votes with Manchin, but you can never rule him out. He's voted on stuff he said he wasn't going to, and he voted on it, and it got passed. So if the AOCs and the squad members actually take back their word by saying that they're not going to vote on the smaller package, and it actually passes the House and reaches the Senate, because right now Joe Biden is actually meeting with Sinema and Manchin because he's trying to convince them and negotiate with it. So they're trying their best to get Manchin, Romney, they're trying their best to get it negotiated and sound convincing. So I wouldn't count Manchin out. I mean, we don't want it to pass. We don't want it to pass, but as being a realist, you don't want to say it's not, and then it end up does. So over the next couple of videos, I'm going to play a little bit of stuff that's actually in it. Some of it's going to piss you off. But let's keep going, because I do have a couple of videos that is irrelatable to this. Yes, Ryza. Since you're here, do y'all want me to do the happy birthday song again? Because you and Christina wasn't in here. I'm sure Christina's celebrating her birthday too. It's up to y'all. Do y'all want to hear the birthday song again? Before I move on? Or I can keep moving on? Y'all let me know. Well, I'll play the next video, and if y'all decide y'all want to hear the birthday song, just let me know. Because now that Ryzen's here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got you. Well, the birthday song is in it. When it's over, it'll be there for you. This one is Dems to pay journalists with tax dollars. This is inside of that 3.5 trillion. They're wanting our tax dollars to pay the journalists. You know, the Don Lemons and the Rachel Mad Cows.
Dems to pay journalists with tax dollars in secret provision to the $3.5 trillion spending bill. Well, a closer look at Democrats' massive spending bill shows that the mainstream media is going to greatly benefit from some pork barrel spending. One section has a special tax credit to pay journalists' salaries. With this bailout, expect to see every media outlet become state-run like we see in communist countries, or in fact, maybe they already are. This is the nextnewsnetwork.com, where we are not state-funded. We are funded by you guys, and we appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the red button below and turn on the bell.
Before I get to that report, do you know about shrinkflation? It is inflation by stealth, where you get less and less burger or candy bars for your dollar. Thankfully, with a precious metal IRA, you can actually hedge against growing prices and retire 5-ounce pure silver America the Beautiful bullion coin with every eligible IRA or 401k rollover. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com or call them today at 877-646-5347. Now back to the news.
I'm Elijah Schaefer, filling in here from Blaze TV, and Mike LaChance from the American Lookout reports the Democrats' $3.5 trillion spending bill is so massive and so packed with pork that it's hard to know what's even in it. One buried item that no one is talking about is the bailout for the liberal media. Do you want your tax dollars going to them? Well, Democratic lawmakers within the House Ways and Means Committee have crafted the tax credit as a part of their 881-page proposal that they will ensure Mr. Biden's big spending legislation is fully funded. Well, the special journalism tax credit is equal to 50% of the salary of each journalist, up to $50,000 per journalist annually. Yeah, that's correct. Your tax dollars would be paying 50% of the salaries of many journalists, whether you like their reporting or not. Think of it as a way to turn every news outlet in America into a version of NPR. Let's be clear that saving the media would destroy the media. How could we ever trust journalists to accurately cover the elected officials who voted against their funding? How can you speak truth to power when, of course, you're pleading with that power for cash? This brings up a lot of questions as to why so many people from the CIA and FBI are involved as well. Which news outlets would get the funding and which would be snubbed? Any pretense of objectivity would be destroyed once the media is on the federal payroll. And if you think the media is already hostile to conservatives, libertarians, Christians, business leaders, Southerners, and basically anyone who didn't love Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's dress from the Met Gala, I mean, if you go any further, just imagine the disdain that they'll show you once they're funded by tax dollars. Also, the press coverage of any politician that dares to oppose renewing or increasing their funding, I mean, that is going to get very sticky. The liberal media should not be getting taxpayer-funded cash bailouts from Democrats or anyone in the government. They are already far too closely aligned as it is. No one is going to trust a journalist if they are on government payroll. We should not be using taxpayer dollars by any means to bail out media companies. Americans already don't trust the media, and this is why so many of you tune into our channel. We are here to give you the truth and to tell you what the mainstream media refuses to do. Can you imagine a world where everything that is already as biased as it is becomes more biased when the government is paying their salaries? For the nextnewsnetwork.com, I'm Elijah Schaefer of Blaze TV.
Yes, Ryzen, to pay them off. Do you think you would ever get anything that was factual if it came from someone who was being paid by the government? No, it wouldn't. And as we are right now, we're already seeing a shift in the narrative. But if you have, okay, we know that they are paid off. We know that the mainstream media is paid off by corporations and countries. But if the United States media outlet was actually paid by the government funded, I guess that would include Fox News, but you would never hear anything that was factual based. And to be honest, I don't really watch mainstream anymore. I watch Newsmax. Sometimes I may read articles or clips from Fox News, but I found I have Hulu Live, and I found this news channel called News Nation, and they're pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's like another Newsmax, and they're independent. And we actually need, whether it's left or right, we just need facts. I don't care if liberal media talked about their views. Holly, I wish y'all could see this. The cat's on the fridge trying to knock my magnets off. Sorry. But we need a reliable source for our news. We need a reliable source for what's going on. It's sad that even right now, I can't talk about certain things on YouTube or I'll get a strike. I'll get my channel in jeopardy of getting taken down. And that's why we got these backups, because we're trying to get those strikes removed. But YouTube actually sent out an email, and it says that if you are spreading misinformation about the V, that your channel will be banned. So they're not even playing anymore. They're not hiding it and they're not playing. But we have to have a reliable news source, because right now our country is in a frenzy. And just like those cargo containers, you can't get the truth out of other networks because they're not even covering it. They're still talking about the whips with the Border Patrol. So having tax-paying dollars pay 50% salaries to the media is, to be honest, nothing good could come out of it. So that's another reason why we need to make sure that this bill doesn't get passed. The next one is from Black Conservative Perspective, but I'm only going to play a clip out of this. It's Jen Psaki. I know we don't like her, but she said something that was a little absurd, and this is what she said.
Republicans are pointing to in the analysis from the Joint Committee. I want to ask you about what Republicans are pointing to in the analysis from the Joint Committee on Taxation. They say, according to, if I've read the chart correctly, more than 16% of taxpayers would see their taxes increase under the bill that's approved by the House Ways and Means Committee. Will the president sign that bill as it is coming out of that committee, or will he insist on the changes so that he will maintain his commitment that taxes won't go up on people making $400,000 a year?
I have not looked at the document or the report that you have put out. Obviously the president, or that you have referenced, I should say, that the Republicans put out. Obviously the president's commitment remains not raising taxes for anyone making less than $400,000 a year. There are some, and I'm not sure if this is the case in this report, who argue that in the past companies have passed on these costs to consumers. I'm not sure if that's the argument being made in this report. We feel that that's unfair and absurd, and the American people would not stand for that. But I will take a closer look at this report and get you a more substantive response. Go ahead, Jack.
All right, guys. So there's a couple ways to interpret what Miss Jen Psaki is trying to say there, right? The first way is what everybody thinks she's saying, which is the idea that it is absurd to think that companies would pass on tax increases to consumers in the form of higher prices on goods and services, right? Basically, what she's saying is that the idea that companies raise prices in response to tax increases, corporate tax increases, is absurd. That's the first way to interpret what she's saying. The second way to interpret what she's saying is that, well, it's absurd for companies to do that, right? And that people would get upset if they decided to pass on the cost of increased corporate taxes to consumers in the form of high prices. She's not necessarily saying that it doesn't happen, that corporations don't pass on the cost of tax increases to consumers in the form of high prices. But what she's actually really saying is that it will be bad for them, I guess, from a moral standpoint, right? Or a goodwill standpoint to do that with consumers, and that people wouldn't be happy if they did that, right? So those are the two ways to interpret what he's saying. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to assume that she's going with the first interpretation, right? Which is that companies do not increase consumer prices in response to corporate tax increases. So let's get into this. First of all, I just want people to understand that corporations are simply made up of people, right? So any taxes on a corporation is essentially taxing people. These taxes are split between companies and consumers. That's kind of how it works. Now, a mistake that I'm seeing on the right is that a lot of people are making absolute statements as an argument against corporate tax increases, right? They're saying things like, well, any corporate tax increases will just be passed on to consumers at higher prices. Companies are just going to raise their prices, and just, the customers, they're all going to be the ones that's going to pay, right? When that claim is also just as absurd as the claim that Jen Psaki makes, if you're interpreting this way, that companies don't pass on tax increases to consumers. Now, again, that's why I said at the beginning of this video that people have to be careful when they're talking about economics and making these statements in extremes, because 99% of the time, the answer is actually in the middle. So the question of whether or not companies pass on tax increases to consumers, it really just is, it just depends, right? It just depends on the situation, right? Because you have this concept, guys, in economics called the elasticity of demand. And the elasticity of demand simply just measures the responsiveness of quantity demanded of a certain good or service in response to price. So the elasticity of demand plays an important factor in determining the price that consumers are willing to pay for a good or service, which again in turn determines the price that firms can set for a good or a service, right? Unless you are a monopolist, okay, you can't just arbitrarily set any price on the market that you want and expect people to pay. That's not how it works, right? That's not how it works. And even if you are a monopolist, you still, even though
So from what he was just explaining, basically, if demand goes up, the price goes down because you're able to actually make more because more people will buy it. But if the demand is lower, then the product's price will go higher because they need to count on, well, some people's going to buy it, so I still need to make money off of it, even though it's not in a high demand. And that's kind of how, when the taxes of the corporate and the corporate gains taxes increase, then there will be an influx of pricing and taxing based off of the demand. And I'm sure that, especially with these cargo containers sitting in the ocean right now, the demand is high, but you can't even buy the product because there's not on the shelf. But I'm sure if you've noticed over the past little bit, you've seen the price of meat go up because the demand is so low. And because of the demand being low, they're able to make the money back by increasing the price. And if these corporations end up getting taxed, then we'll see a little bit more of that. But it's not going to be all across the board because some products are in a higher demand than other products just based off of human needs, like milk. Milk is one of those things that it can increase based off of the production. But so if you didn't watch the Shortages Coming 2021 video, it was done a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago. There's a lot of explanation in there about inflation and how it works and products that tend to get increase in the inflation based off of the demand. So a lot of that's going to happen because while you go to the store and the meat department is slacking, you're going to end up paying more for that meat just based off of the demand. The demand's high for it, but the supply is not there, so they're going to overcharge so that even though the supply is not there, they're going to make money off of the people buying it because it's something that people need. Yes, Nick, it is. And so what's really irritating is, so what happened in 2020, we were in a lockdown and the debate of whether to open the country back up or not. You know, we had 2 weeks to slow the curve. Well, when the country was able to let the states make that decision, a lot of those states that didn't open up also had some of these businesses that we relied on, which also created some of this backup because they wasn't not in production. But with that being said, a lot of these red states kept assuming, you know, I don't want to say normal, but, you know, kept going on with the normal pattern of go to work, go to the store, go to church, when you had other states that didn't get to do that. Well, after Biden got inaugurated, and I knew he was going to do this, now what do you see him say all the time? We have the highest economic recovery in 60 years. Okay, mister. That is lying with statistics because you can't have a statistic based off of a lockdown and a economic collapse the way that we had. So, and you have Democrats from the base that actually believe this, that his economy is doing great because he'll make a speech saying that we have the best recovery in the past century, but his economic recovery is based off of everybody going back to work. So that's just something that irritates me. This is the last one I'm going to play about this, and then I'm going to move on into something else. Sorry, I'm letting an ad play. It's really weird doing this by myself, I'm not going to lie. It's really different. It's actually really quiet. I miss Hillbilly.
A real train wreck right now on Capitol Hill. The Democrats don't have their act together. They don't have the votes to pass the debt ceiling increase. They don't have the votes to pass their so-called sham infrastructure bill, and they don't have the votes for their $5 trillion atrocity bill that would expand the social welfare state. The Democrats are now kind of scuffling with each other. You've got the moderates of the party that are really getting a lot of attacks from the squad and the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, and they've got a real tough time of it. They had a real problem earlier this week because Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader of the Senate, really outwitted them, and Chuck Schumer had to put his tail between his legs, and he was trying to get the Republicans to go along with this massive debt ceiling bill. So the bottom line here is that they're nowhere right now, and they're so desperate that they're starting to use these crazy lines, as you just said, that's become almost like a late night comedy routine where Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden said, it's free. It's not going to cost you anything. Never mind that it has a $5 trillion price tag. Never mind that they don't have, they're about $2 or $3 trillion short of paying for it. They've got real problems right now. And I think this is going to go till Christmas. I think they cannot get 218 votes in the House, and they cannot get 51 votes in the Senate for their radical agenda.
Well, that's because in the Senate, at least Joe Manchin, he's standing pretty strong against it as it is right now. He issued a statement. He said every member of Congress has a solemn duty to vote for what they believe is best for the country and the American people, not their party. Respectfully, as I've said for months, I can't support $3.5 trillion more in spending when we've already spent $5.4 trillion since last March. At some point, all of us, regardless of party, must ask the simple question: how much is enough? Stephen, based on your economic analysis, how much is enough, and do we need more right now?
No, we should be cutting government spending right now. We should have a plan to cut about $1 or $2 trillion out of the budget. The economic crisis of COVID is over. Report just came out. We had 6.5% growth in the economy in the second quarter. That's a very strong number. We should be, now that the crisis is over, we should move towards cutting government spending by about 10 or 15% across the board. Of course, the Democrats are doing the opposite because their theme is a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. They want to use this moment to massively increase the national debt, increase our tax rates, increase the presence of government in our life. By the way, a child born today, by the time they are 30, if this bill passes, will have a $307,000 essentially share of the national debt. $307,000 for every child that's born today. That is outrageous. We should be bringing taxes and spending down right now, and this just isn't happening. So I think there's a real shift in public attitude away from this as they learn what's in the bill. By the way, it's 2,500 pages. There is a provision, you may have heard about this one. They've got a provision in there for tree equity. I don't know what that means. By tree, I mean oak trees and elm trees. Maybe somebody's got to define that. Another one, they have a $5 million study to study the impact of climate change on pregnant women.
Wow. You got to read the fine print. You talk about how long this is, how much it's going to cost. They actually don't have the final, again, all the final details. They're still working through that at this point. Okay. Very, very fascinating. And then,
by
of
the
course,
way, they don't want people to read the bill, right? They don't want it's going to be, remember what Nancy Pelosi said about Obamacare. We'll read the bill after we pass it. That's exactly what they want to do here. But I don't think the American people are going to stand for that. And I think people will read it and they'll find out what's in here.
yeah. Hey, you want to know what you're voting on. Stephen Moore, thank you very much.
Never let a crisis go to waste. That's basically what we've seen for the past year and a half. Well, over a year and a half. He said that every child that's born, was that 370,000, something like that? Like, that's ridiculous, to be honest, that they want to raise the national debt because of their overspending. And then you have all of this debt that'll be carried on from generation to generation just to make up for somebody, or not somebody, this administration that wants to do wasteful spending on doing research on the effect of climate change while someone's pregnant. That's about as ridiculous as doing research on lizards running on a treadmill. And that's where our tax dollars are going, to useless studies that actually has nothing to come out of it. And I think a lot of these studies actually is nothing but, it's like lobbyists making money off of the tax dollars, because they never publicize any of this research. Never. They might do a peer review article on it, but we never actually get the research that they're trying to say that they're doing. And you got diabetes and cancer research that they say that they're doing, but it never comes to light. All you know is that the tax dollars is being sent to these organizations claiming that they'll do some research on it. And every time they have one of these bills, they throw millions and billions of dollars to these organizations, and it's for nothing. For what? Nothing. So from there, I'm going to move on to, a lot of y'all heard, Angry Conservative actually covered this. The lieutenant colonel I'm not covering him, but they interviewed his parents. And his parents actually had words to say for the administration. And this video is from Newsmax, and it's called "Parents of Imprisoned Marine Rip Biden Administration's Cowardice." I lie, this isn't Newsmax. This is actually Fox News, Laura Ingraham.
We have a Secretary of Defense that testified to Congress in May that the Afghan National Security Force could withstand the Taliban advance. We have chairmen of Joint Chief, who the Commandant is a member of that, who's supposed to advise on military policy. We have a Marine combatant commander. All of these people are supposed to advise. Potentially all those people did die in vain if we don't have senior leaders that own up and raise their hand and say, we did not do this well in the end.
Well, that man, Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, is now sitting in the brig, and he faces a potential court-martial for calling out the sheer ineptitude of this military decision-making. Now, while he's in jail, the craven leaders he called out peddled excuses for their failures in Afghanistan on the Hill today.
I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces.
Yes, my assessment was back in the fall of 20, and it remained consistent throughout, that we should keep a steady state of 2,500, and it could bounce up to 3,500, maybe something like that.
Well, in the end, did they agree with what the young man was saying? Joining me exclusively are Lieutenant Colonel Scheller's parents, Kathy and Stu Scheller. Stu, your reaction to your son's imprisonment while our military leaders were, playing the kind of blame-shifting game on Capitol Hill today, essentially saying, no, we would have left troops there. That was our recommendation. Your response?
Our son called for accountability. And throughout the hearing today, I don't feel like they accepted accountability. So I'm extremely disappointed. And it's no coincidence, in my opinion, that they put a gag order on him and they put him in prison the day before they had to appear in front of senators and tomorrow in front of congressmen. I think that is fairly an act of cowardice. And our son, we're very proud of our son. Our son is a hero. He fought for this country for 17 years. He's been on 5 deployments. He's taught countless men and women. The Marines thought him exemplary. They have fast-tracked him in his career. And until 30 days ago, he was a hero to the leadership of the Marine Corps. But on August 26th, when 13 of our servicemen died at the Kabul airport, something inside of our son snapped. He was angry. And he, in principle, he's a very courageous and principled man, always has been. But when that happened, he had to go and ask his leaders for accountability. He had many active duty Marines, and there are many veterans out here that he works with suicide prevention that were asking, was it all worth it? And he called for accountability, and within 12 hours, they removed him of his position. And after that, it's been downhill from there.
Kathy, your son's in military prison tonight. As a mother, when you watched General Mark Milley ask point blank if he would resign, I want your reaction after we play his answer.
As a senior military officer, resigning is a really serious thing. It's a political act if I'm resigning in protest. My dad didn't get a choice to resign at Iwo Jima. And those kids that are at Abbey Gate, they don't get a choice to resign. And I'm not going to turn my back on them. I'm not going to resign. They can't resign, so I'm not going to resign. There's no way.
Kathy, he said resigning would be turning his back on the troops. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are, our son said to him, if you thought this was a bad idea, were you willing to take your rank and put it down and say, I will not put our men and women in peril? He should have dropped that rank. He should have resigned and said, I will not do this to our service members. But he didn't do that, did he? And let me explain to you why the accountability is so important. During our war, the last 20 years, we have lost around 7,000 troops. We have lost somewhere, depending on the data that you want to look at, somewhere in the last 20 years, between 30 up to 100,000 troops from suicide. They need that accountability. They need to know that what they did mattered. So many lives can be saved on the backside by being held accountable. And I say take that rank and put it down and stand up for your other servicemen members. Stand up for my son. Stand up for Stu. Stand up for America.
Stuart,
Basically,
go ahead.
Basically, they left hundreds of Americans in Afghanistan. Well, they're leaving our son tonight in prison. And that's not okay with us. And I challenge the American people, is that okay with you? Is it okay with you that a 17-year infantry officer that put his life on the line to protect you and protect your children, is it okay with you that he is put in jail and is facing a court-martial? He didn't murder anyone. He didn't sexually offend anyone. He didn't do drugs. He asked for accountability. He spoke his truth, and they couldn't handle it. It's an embarrassment. It's shameful. And if it's not okay for you, Americans, we're asking you to stand up, write your congressman, call your congressman, demand accountability. And it's not just accountability for the botched Afghanistan withdrawal and Americans left behind. It's accountability. The only one that's being held accountable for this botched situation is my son by the generals.
Senator Cotton
Tom Cotton today asked.
Yeah, I want to play this actually.
I know.
You took the words out of my mouth. Senator Cotton asked Defense Secretary Austin about your son's confinement today. Watch.
Marine Colonel Stuart Scheller posted a very critical video on social media last month, and he was relieved of his command for that posting. Media reports today indicate that he is being held in pretrial confinement. Why is that?
I don't have any specifics of what caused him to be held in pretrial confinement, and I would certainly ask the Marines to provide that insight.
Kathy, he's the Pentagon chief. This young man is in jail, in military jail. Are you surprised that Austin seems to have no idea what's going on, or pretends he has no idea what's going on?
I could not believe those words came out of his mouth. And if he doesn't know what's going on, shame on him. Shame on him if he is totally unaware. A lot of other people are aware, but we are not going to let them take their dirty little secret and hide it away and put our son so he can't speak, put a gag order on him, take him away from his freedom of speech so that they can hide their little secret. Oh, I don't know, huh? No, I don't know anything about it.
Well, Stuart, Joe Biden campaigned
When they
as a president who was going to bring accountability and transparency to government. That was a
So yeah, that situation, it angers me. It angers me that you had someone in leadership in the military, maybe not in the brass leadership, but you had someone who actually stood up and said what those beneath him couldn't say. He is being held for basically political reasons. They didn't want what he was saying to harm the administration's optics. And the fact that they did that the day before they started this pretrial or this hearing for the Pentagon, yes, Fetty, yes, I completely agree. The fact that Austin acted like he was unaware of the situation baffles me. And watching that hearing, and Austin actually sounded like a 3-year-old that didn't know how to speak because he didn't have words coming out of his mouth. He didn't know what to say. He acted oblivious to the whole entire Afghanistan situation. And when he did speak, all he did was lie. So having leadership that's supposed to lead the greatest military on earth that doesn't even act like they know what's going on just baffles me. That what they're doing to this lieutenant colonel is nothing but making him silenced. He's being censored. And I watched Angry Conservatives video earlier today, and he was talking about, I don't know if y'all seen, but the last Trump rally that he had in Georgia this past weekend, they recognized and brought on stage the guy that was lifting up the babies, the Afghan babies, and bringing them over the wall. He was wearing a plaid button-up shirt with pants and nothing affiliated, no Trump affiliation, not even like a American flag or anything. It was just regular clothes. And Trump brought him on stage and thanked him. And now he's under investigation for basically, they're saying that he was showing partisan to a political party. And he never said anything on stage that made it sound like he voted for Trump or that he even he never leaned one way or the other. He went up there and got his recognition. And he basically said, "Hey, I am Sergeant so-and-so, and I did that out of the kindness of my heart because that's the type of person I am, and I serve my country." That's basically what he said. And now he's under investigation. A Marine, another Marine. And I think that with that Marine, what they're trying to do is saying because he was at the Trump rally, he's affiliated with white supremacy, white nationalism, racism. You know, that's nothing but another political stunt. He was at the rally, but he was invited to the rally to be recognized. He was not there to make any political statements, just to be recognized. And I think that where we're going as a nation, where our military is being backed up into a corner to where you can't even stick up for yourself, you can't receive a recognition unless it's from the right person. Where are we going from here? I mean, you had Milley saying just 2 weeks leading up to the withdrawal from Afghanistan, he wants to understand white rage. Maybe instead of trying to understand white rage, you should have been planning on how to evacuate from Afghanistan. And we wouldn't have had the situation that we had. So Milley can say that, but a Marine can't go to a Trump rally to get recognized. I think they need to reevaluate who they have in the Pentagon. That seems more beneficial than trying to go after the actual hardworking ground soldiers. Mickey said they keep this. Yeah, I completely agree. Between this, the way that they're politicizing these military personnel who's trying to speak up, and the mandatoriness of healthcare, there's a lot of military that's walking away. There's a lot of military that's not re-enlisting. There's a lot of military that, well, there's a lot of people who is that was seeking to join that's not joining because of what they're seeing that's going on. It may not be vocal to where everyone can hear it, but there's a lot of people that sees what's going on, and it's affecting our military. Our military is about to be in a position to where they don't know if they could be reliable because of the higher ups demanding them to do things that shouldn't be demanded, even down to being silenced and can't speak your mind. Now, as a leadership, wouldn't you want if someone had concerns or questions to be raised so you can address them? But instead, they just want to keep you quiet and say, "Do as I say, not as I do." The next one I have is Greta Thunberg. she's out and about again. And it was funny because she was actually condemning the administration. And after this, I only have one more thing, and then we'll be able to call it a night. And since it's Thursday, I won't be doing a porch talk. And the only reason why I did this tonight is because I'm going camping this weekend. So I'm sure Hillbilly's going to do something this weekend, but I wanted to make sure that I got some of this stuff out before, because if I were to do it next week, that would just be, covering old news. So I wanted to make sure that I got it while it was still out there and relatable. Yeah, Mickey, they don't want them to have independent thoughts of their own. And thank you. You changed your name. I'm going to Prairie Creek. It's here in Alabama, and it's on the lake, so it should be fun. I'm going with my mom and stepdad, and we're going kayak. We got kayaks, so we're going to go kayaking and stuff like that.
An angry Greta Thunberg blowing a gasket in Milan, saying 3 words that are sweeping the world. Yeah, this was actually pretty great to watch. And you'll get to see Greta Thunberg rip into world leaders on the international stage. She started shouting into the microphone and probably said the words blah, 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 blah like 30 times. Okay. It kind of seems like she's talking about the Biden administration. You be the judge. Before I show it to you, if you're new here, hit the red button down below to subscribe and tap that notification bell when you do. You ready? You ready for this? Blah, 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 blah. Christina Layla at the Gateway Pundit reports that the Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg scolded world leaders in a climate summit in Italy. 400 young climate activists from 180 countries gathered in Milan for the Youth for Climate Summit. The Swedish teen Greta Thunberg shouted into the microphone and blasted world leaders for not doing enough to save the planet. Okay, ready for this? Watch.
There is no planet B. There is no planet blah, 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 blah. This is not about some expensive, politically correct green act of bunny hugging or blah, blah, blah. Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Green economy, blah, blah, blah. Net zero by 2050, blah, blah, blah. Net zero, blah, blah, blah. Climate neutral, blah, blah, blah. This is all we hear from our so-called leaders. Words. Words that sound great, but so far has led to no action. Our hopes and dreams drown in their empty words and promises. Of course, we need constructive dialogue, but they've now had 30 years of blah, 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 and where has that led us? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it?
Oh my goodness. And then the audience of masked sheep erupted in applause. Twitter users did not take kindly to Thunberg's remarks. What are her credentials as a climate expert? She was too busy skipping school. That's right. No, no credentials. And then there was this. What method of transportation did you use to get to that meeting? Do you use solar power to charge your phone and your laptop? When will you be an example of what you preach? Blah, blah, blah. Seems you are the pot calling the kettle black. And then there was this. It's times like this I wish that Trump was still on Twitter. Yes, Greta Thunberg, she has been used by the left for the past several years to push their radical green policies. Blah, blah, blah is probably all that many of us hear when she speaks. Her ideas are filled with blah, 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 and her speeches are filled with blah, blah, blah. And she is used as a political pawn by blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's actually pretty fun to do, right? So tell me what you think of Greta Thunberg's speech. Was it blah, blah, blah? Rated on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most blah. We'll see you at the next report. For the Next News Network, I'm Gary Franchi. Thank you.
How did y'all enjoy that? Blah, blah, blah. It kind of reminds me of Hotel Transylvania. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, she was calling out the Biden administration, basically saying that what he's doing is not enough. I wouldn't give her too much credit by condemning them. She just wants more green stuff. The last thing I have is President Biden was booed at the congressional baseball game. Yeah, Mickey, blah, 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 blah. I bet she flew on a plane to get there. All right, here we go. Oops, my bad. Hold up.
U.S. lawmakers took time off from playing politics to play ball, and get this, the Republicans won 13-12. But that wasn't what took center stage last night at the ballpark.
Instead, it was President Biden attending the congressional baseball game last night. Of course, with his economic agenda hanging in the balance, that got a lot of attention. The president was greeted by some mixed reaction. Watch.
Joe, you suck!
I think that was filmed from the Republican side of the stadium.
Yeah, there were some cheers on the other side. Obviously, you can, you could have gathered both, booed and cheered for. But rather,
He's not wearing a mask.
Republicans win this game. Congressman Stubbe, though, making the headlines.
That was crazy.
I think it was the first time that it was knocked out of the park. A home run was hit by a congressional member.
Really impressive. Either way, I mean, that sailed. So that was a really cool, exciting moment. Again, you think bipartisan time when, folks across the aisle can come together, they can have a little fun, and they can raise some money for charities as well. I believe Capitol Police were one of the receiving groups. But of course, this is a very heated time. So like on the field, are they taking out the aggression that they have towards one another? Frustration back and forth between trying to reach a deal when it comes to spending, even internally on the Democrat team? I don't know. What's happening in the dugout?
You wonder if there were wagers made behind the scenes. Like, all right, if we win. That's a high-scoring baseball game, by the way. If you know anything just in general about baseball, 13-12. I mean, that's for non-major leaguers. That's a pretty high-scoring game, and it was very close. I don't know if that's going to be what is reflected in the midterms or not. Tight race, Republicans pull it out. Many predict that, but yeah, either way, you finally saw President Biden come out. You haven't seen him in a minute.
Yeah, that's so true.
We were talking about that a lot, where he's
You've seen top generals testify.
Yes, top
And
generals.
the president hasn't made himself available to a press conference. Of course, we saw his face not wearing a face mask outside, although he has in the past. I thought that was interesting.
I thought it was nice. He handed out some ice cream, though.
He did.
Yeah.
Biden
I
ice
like
cream bars, I
What
guess.
is it about the ice cream? Always
It's
ice cream.
It's a nice little puff
Yeah,
piece.
and I think they had a little presidential seal on it too, so that was handed out during the game there. But
So yeah, they did the congressional baseball game yesterday. Biden got some booze. One Republican, forget, he's from Florida, I think, got a out of the park home run, which was the first time in 40 years. So that was pretty cool. I figured I would end with that video since it was a little lighthearted. Not lighthearted, but it was light in the message. I really don't have anything else, and I thank y'all for coming and watching on a Thursday night. Sorry, the Porch Honkies was a little quiet tonight, considering I didn't have my partner in crime. But if there's anything else that y'all have, y'all can put it in the chat before I go. Y'all been quiet tonight too, not gonna lie. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you, Mickey. Oh, and by the way, Mickey got inducted to a channel. So last night on Hanging with T and Z, she's gonna be the M to our TMZ. So Mickey, yeah, she gets to do her Alexa voice on the Hanging with TMZ now. So that's something to look forward to. Cheek busting patriot. I kind of like the ring to that. Cheek busting. Got Boatston changed his name to Boats Nose Barbecue and Cheek busting patriot. Oh, you got suckered into that and you didn't even know it. She's already made the emblem for it and everything. Yeah, Z sent it to me. I'm sure she sent it to you as well, but she's excited about it. Thank you, Nick. Thank you. It's a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's weird being by myself because we feed off of each other. So it was a little different. Actually, we've been live, or I've been live for 2 hours and 28 minutes. If Hillbilly was here, it'd be 5 hours. So we did get through it a little faster than normal. So I'm gonna go ahead and say my good nights. Say my good nights and thank y'all for coming. I hope y'all have a good weekend. I'll still be around on Discord, and I don't really use Discord that much, but I'll be on there, and I'll also be on the group chat. So if y'all need anything from me, just let me know. And hope y'all have a good weekend, and thanks for coming. Y'all's what made this channel go. Y'all are the Porch Honkies. Y'all make the Porch Honkies. So little shout out to y'all. Y'all do make the Porch Honkies, I'm not gonna lie. Zoe, stop it. Okay, Zoe wants to say bye. Come on. Tell them bye. Yeah, Zoe wanted to say bye-bye. She's been wondering what I've been doing the whole time. Okay. It's the link to TMZ is gonna be. It's the same as hanging with TMZ. So, hold on, let me go. It's gonna be the same channel as hanging with TNZ. We're just gonna throw an M in there, and before I go, I'm going to drop the link in case anybody hasn't subscribed. You go find it. There it goes. Oh, she's already changed it. Warrior Z is so excited. She has already changed the name. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's the link to Hanging with TMZ. She's already changed it, so Mickey's in there. So if you haven't subscribed to it, here it is. I'll drop it in there. So, yeah, I want to say thank y'all for coming, and I hope y'all have a good weekend. If you need anything, reach out to me. I'll be here. Other than that, have a good night.
I've been known to sit on my porch all day long. Porch honky in my swing, and I ain't worried about a thing. Porch honky, all I need is a big old glass of cold sweet tea. Porch honky, doing fine, living life one day at a time. 1, 2, 3, one day at a time.
Porch honky, sitting on my porch swing, waiting on that sunset to hear the coyotes sing. But in the meantime, it's the same routine. Sweet tea in my beat up jeans. Charlie Minus on the 6-string, picking a tune. Tracy Stone doing his thing, skinning a coon. Dogs on the porch laid out by my feet, and everybody's head starts bobbing to the beat. Cars drive by looking at us kind of funny. Just some old porch honkies ain't got no money. Crops in the backyard, chickens in the front, slingshot shooting beer cans off that stump. And the black smoke coming from the smoker. Dinner time's close. Yesterday's hide hanging right on the post. Kick back, rocking chair, yeah, we keep it funky. And that's the definition of an old porch honky.
Porch honky, I've been known to sit on my porch all day long. Porch honky in my swing, and I ain't worried about a thing. Porch honky, all I need is a big old glass of cold sweet tea. Porch honky, doing fine, living life one day at a time. 1, 2, 3, one day at a time.
Hanging out, I ain't gotta do a damn thing, but sit right here all day on my porch swing. Drink a few, take a chew, kick it with my homies. Might get drunk and start acting like a donkey. Moccasin Creek, feet bare like my pockets. Connor's on the porch and he's shooting bottle rockets. CB3's humming us a brand new song. He said, yeah, it won't be long until we wake up in the morning and we do it again. Yeah, we're front porch cooking, roof covered in tin. The sun is beating down on my cowboy hat. My voice is getting hoarse, my beer is never flat. I'm looking for my rifle, I found my 45. I raised it in the air, shot it high in the sky. Nobody asked why, they just looked and grinned. Yeah, them old porch honks, man, they're at it again.
Porch honky, I've been known to sit on my porch all day long. Porch honky in my swing, and I ain't worried about a thing. one day at a Porch honky doing fine, living life one day at a time. One day at a time.